This is going to be a little bit different, but I think I like it. Hi guys, it's April, and I'm going to do this review the same way I do all my other reviews, with the non-spoiler section at front, the spoiled fill dump afterwards. But in this case, since I'm doing this review kind of differently in style, if you get to that spot, I'm just going to let you mute me and you can carry on and see what I do with this piece. Because I thought it would be fun to start trying to color these covers as I'm giving these reviews. We'll see how it goes. I've got high hopes for this. So, Punderworld by Linda Sejic, I probably pronounced that completely wrong, is the story of Hades and Persephone. I love these kind of retellings. Hades and Persephone, the trope of Hades and Persephone is probably one of my favorite because it leads into Eros and Psyche and East of the Sun, West of the Moon, and all of those kind of wonderful tales that I absolutely adore so much. With Hades and Persephone, you can get into some pretty dark places with kidnapping, but what I absolutely love about this story, about these illustrations, about what was done here, is the fact that it wasn't necessarily a kidnapping. It was mostly an accident set up by Zeus. Hades is one of the most shyest, cutest men ever, which makes sense given his job profession and the fact that mostly he interacts with mortal spirits. And then we've got Persephone, who just wants to have a life, who wants the world outside of what her mother is trying to keep her in, and the fact that her mother doesn't really seem to see what's going on right now, and there's some deep-rooted things that are going on since it's perpetual summer all of the time. Now, this isn't the complete story. This is only volume 1. But just within this first volume, we get to see the start of what is to become this beautiful couple. We end in the underworld and people starting to realize that other beings are not where they're supposed to be. Knowing the tale, it's not that huge of a cliffhanger, but I liked how far this volume went. I do like the dynamic between Hades and Persephone. You've got this very awkward tension because neither of them really know how to interact with the other. Both of them have been isolated either by profession or by family. And so you see how they're trying to figure out what's going on within themselves and then trying to make this connection with another being that is like themselves. Another thing I have to really point out about this story is I love the way the gods and goddesses are drawn when they're in their godlike forms. So a lot of times we see them almost human-like, but there are moments where these beings are just so overwhelmed by emotion or something triggers them that they become ethereal in a way. And I really like how that is done. The art style in this volume is phenomenal. I love it. If you haven't checked out the story and you really like Greek mythology, if you really like Hades and Persephone, I highly recommend that you pick up this thing. It's lovely. When are we going to get volume 2? I have no idea. I'm hoping it's at some point in the near future, but I don't know where there's a date. If you know where there's a date, I would love for you to tell me where the date is because I need to know when the next volume comes out. So this is the point in which I'm going to start going into some spoiled filled stuff. Given the nature of the story, you probably know a lot of what I'm going to say if you know anything about Hades and Persephone. However, if you do not want to spoil yourself for this particular retelling, mute me, but don't go away. Okay, so I covered a lot of my thoughts in the non-spoiler section. But I do have to say, the way Persephone has to deal with her mother, there were a lot of times where it felt like her mother was gaslighting her to the extreme. But at the same time, I don't even think she sees what's going on. And a lot of what she's saying, she actually believes is true. It's weird. and uncomfortable. And part of me understands these gods and goddesses because, I've done a ton of research on these gods and goddesses. I've even taken some college courses and things like that because I'm obsessed with the stories that surround these mythologies. And to know how messed up all of them are. And this story, it tries to find the balance between these godlike, unchecked beings and the stories that we really have come to attach ourselves to. Because Hades and Persephone, by nature, is a kidnapping story about a man who sees a girl who's really pretty, drags her away, forces her into marriage. And yet, it's a story that a lot of us are really drawn to for whatever reason. And this almost tries to add more to it so that it's not about a man lusting after a woman. It's about a girl who is very much controlled and suppressed by her mother, and a man who doesn't really get a lot of interactions with others like himself. And through the fate of his brother, who sets up a very horrible trap, they both end up kind of mushed together. But ultimately, I believe that the trajectory of this story is going to mean that they get to make the decision on getting married, which is going to be adorable rather into a forced marriage. But you can see on the outside world the fact that we've got perpetual summer. We've always got Persephone and her mother forcing plants, and Persephone is starting to notice that the ground doesn't feel right because of this, that there's something going on that they're not keeping in mind. And as most of us have come to realize, that the earth needs sleep. It can't constantly be pushing things out. It needs a time to rejuvenate. It needs time to put nutrients back in the soil, having things die off and replenish life. And that's kind of how the circle goes. I mean, you get into some weird places like the tropics where you don't really get those winters, but you still have winters. Because, I mean, you have the rainy seasons and things like that, that it's a different kind of winter. But the land needs to rest. And at the beginning of time, according to these myths, it did not, until eventually it did, because Persephone had to spend some time in the underworld when she became queen. So, just to see where this story goes, I'm super, super excited. Let me know what you think about all of this. I would love to hear your thoughts. Are you a Hades and Persephone fan? Do you like these kind of stories, these kind of retellings? How do you feel about this one if you've read it? Otherwise, if you want to see more content like this, subscribe down below, hit that bell, do all of those things to get all of those notifications. Maybe even give me a thumbs up if you like this new review style. And I heart your beautiful faces. Bye.